The shock baton cracked blue, and the tiger cub did not move. It only lifted its small head and showed tiny fangs, as if it had learned one rule on Station Kestrel. Hands meant harm. Back, Security Chief Varin ordered. Armored officers tightened the half-circle around the training pen, visors down, rifles slung, stun gear ready. 4 tiger cubs prowled the steel floor, 4 to 5 months old, all ribs and fury. Their stripes flashed under the harsh lights. Their ears stayed pinned. Their tails snapped like whips. For 3 weeks, security had tried everything. Commands. Threats. Isolation. Mild punishment. Every attempt ended the same way. Snarls. Bites at the air. Then the cubs melting into the corners, where cameras could watch them suffer in safety. Commander Holt watched from the observation deck above, knuckles white on the rail. "They do not follow anyone," an officer muttered beside him. Holt did not answer. He had signed the order that brought them aboard. A freighter had arrived half-broken, its cargo manifest wiped. 1 crate survived with a single word burned into the side. Live. Inside were 4 tiger cubs and a dead feeder unit. No mother. No handler. No scent of home. Now the station wanted them trained as tracking animals for emergency response. But grief made them feral. The airlock on the far side hissed, and Nora stepped in. She was not security. She wore station coveralls and a tool belt, hair tied back, hands empty. The only thing sharp on her was her gaze. Varin turned. Restricted bay. "You asked for volunteers," Nora said. "We asked for professionals," Varin snapped. Nora nodded once. "Give me 5 minutes. If I fail, you keep doing what you are doing." Holt leaned closer to the glass. "Give her 5 minutes." Varin's visor angled up. "Sir, she is unarmored." "That is the point," Holt said. Nora walked onto the pen floor and stopped well short of the cubs. She did not advance. She sat down, cross-legged, like the steel was a quiet rug. One officer whispered, "She is going to die." Nora smiled at the cubs. Not a grin. No teeth. Just warmth. The largest cub, midnight-striped with amber eyes, froze mid-step. It blinked, confused by a human who did not loom. Nora spoke softly. "Hi. I am Nora." She slid a folded cloth from her pocket and placed it on the floor between them. It smelled like soap and machine oil and the faintest trace of her skin. No food. No bait. Just an offering. The smallest cub, pale-faced and trembling, took one cautious step forward, then stopped. Another cub circled wide, distrustful. The amber-eyed one watched Nora's hands as if waiting for the hidden grab. Nora stayed still. She breathed slow. "You do not have to do anything," she whispered. "You can leave anytime." Behind her, an officer scoffed. "They do not understand standard." Nora did not look back. "They understand fear." The amber-eyed cub finally padded forward and sniffed the cloth. Its whiskers brushed fabric. It did not bolt. Nora lifted an open palm. "If you want, you can say hello." The cub stared at her hand. Then it stepped in and touched its nose to her fingers. Nora did not grab. She let the cub choose the end of the contact. A collective breath moved through the gallery, as if the station itself had been holding it. A second cub approached, then a third. The smallest stayed close to the corner, trembling but watching. Nora kept her voice low. "That's it. Safe." The amber-eyed cub Saturday. Not because it was ordered. Because it decided. Nora's eyes softened. "Good." The other 2 sat too, crooked and proud. Nora glanced at the smallest. She patted the floor beside her, slow and gentle. The smallest cub inched closer, stopped, then finally lay down with its chin on the deck, breathing fast. Nora did not touch it yet. She earned the space first. Varin's voice cut in. "You are making them attached." Nora answered without turning. Attachment is why they will listen when it matters. Holt's voice came through the comm, quiet with disbelief. How did you do this? I stopped trying to win, Nora said. I started trying to belong. She tapped the floor once.
Come?
The amber-eyed cub stood and stepped closer. The others followed. Nora pointed in a slow circle around her. Around. They moved, not frantic, not forced. Like play. Like practice. Nora reached into her pocket and produced a single dried meat strip, broken into 4 tiny pieces. She did not toss them. She set them on her palm and held it low. Easy, she whispered. One by one, the cubs took a piece without snapping. Even the smallest crept forward and licked the last bit off her skin, then paused as if shocked it had not been punished for wanting. Nora laughed, soft and real. The cubs' ears lifted at the sound. Varin's armor shifted. They are actually listening. Nora finally looked up at him. Because they are not afraid of me. Then the station alarm changed pitch. Not a drill tone. A real alarm, sharp and urgent. Red light washed over the pen. The speaker boomed, an authorized presence. Deck 7. Service tunnel access. The cubs jolted, fear snapping back like a reflex. One bolted. One crouched to fight. The smallest cried, thin and panicked. Varin barked, sedate them now. A medic raised an injector. Nora stood and stepped in front of the cubs. No. Varin's visor swung to her. Move. If you sedate them, Nora said, voice steady, they learn alarms mean pain. You lose them forever. Holt's voice turned hard. Hold, Varin. Varin hesitated. Sir, we have a breach. Then we need them awake, Holt replied. Nora crouched again, bringing herself down to their level. Look at me. The amber-eyed cub locked onto her eyes. Its breath was fast, but it was listening. Nora raised her palm. Stop. 4 small bodies froze, trembling with effort. Nora tapped twice.
Come?
They stepped toward her. Nora pointed to the exit. With me. They followed. Not perfect. But they followed. Deck 7 smelled like cold metal and burnt ozone. A service hatch hung open near the food vault corridor. Holt met them there in person, sidearm drawn. His eyes widened at the cubs. You brought them. They came, Nora corrected. Varin hissed. This is reckless. Nora looked into the dark tunnel. They can smell strangers. Let them lead, and keep your fingers off the sedatives. Holt stared, then nodded once. Do it. Nora knelt at the hatch. Find. The amber-eyed cub's nose worked immediately. It slipped into the tunnel, silent. The others followed, bodies low, tails straight. Nora followed behind with Holt and 2 officers. Ahead, a whisper of voices and the scrape of boots. The cubs stopped. One gave a low warning chuff. Nora raised her palm. Stop. They froze. A shadow shifted, and a raider in a patched suit turned, shock pistol rising. Nora's heart slammed once. She did not shout. She tapped twice. Circle. The cubs flowed outward, cutting angles, blocking the narrow passage without lunging. Teeth showed. No blood. The raider's weapon wavered. Holt stepped forward. Drop it. The raider stared at the cubs, then at Nora. Those are babies. Nora's voice stayed quiet. Yes. And you are still losing. The shock pistol clattered to the floor. 2 more raiders behind him froze as security surged in from the rear. Cuffs clicked. Boots thudded. The tunnel filled with controlled noise instead of gunfire. No shots fired. No one hurt. The cubs returned to Nora's boots, bright-eyed, waiting. Nora released a breath that felt like it had been stuck in her chest for weeks. Holt looked at her like he had just learned a new kind of weapon. You saved the vault. Nora knelt and finally gave them names, because names meant home. She touched the amber-eyed one's shoulder. Pearl. Pearl bumped her shin. Nora pointed to the fast, mischievous one. Lucy. Lucy sneezed and sat like she was proud of it. Nora nodded to the quiet guardian. Riven. Riven hesitated, then Saturday. Nora looked at the smallest, the trembling one that had dared to lick food from her palm. Nova. Nova blinked, then pressed her forehead into Nora's hand. Varin stared at the cubs, then at Nora. His voice came out lower. They listened. They chose to, Nora said. After that day, the compound changed. Officers stopped barking orders. They knelt. They kept hands visible. They spoke softer. They learned the cubs' cues the way you learned a language you respected. Pearl became the steady one, greeting newcomers first. Lucy became the troublemaker, stealing gloves and trotting away like she was teaching people to laugh again. Riven watched the doors, calm and serious. Nova stayed closest to Nora, as if distance still felt like falling. That night, Holt stood beside the glass and watched the pen lights dim to warm amber. Below, Nora sat on a blanket, back against the wall, unarmored. 4 tiger cubs curled around her like living heat. Pearl's head rested on her thigh. Lucy wedged against her hip. Riven tucked at her boots. Nova slept under her wrist, purring so softly the sensors almost missed it. Holt spoke like he did not want to break the moment. All our training. All our protocols. Nora's voice was a whisper. Protocols are for machines. Holt nodded once. And they are not machines. Nora stroked Nova's head, light as a promise. They were never meant to be controlled. They were meant to be cared for. The cubs answered the only way they could. They slept beside her. For the first time since the crate arrived, the pen felt like a room, not a cage. Nora closed her eyes. For small breaths matched her own. Above the glass, Holt finally let his shoulders drop, like he could breathe again. If you felt that switch, when fear turned into trust, hit like and subscribe to Survival Arena HFY. Comment your favorite moment, the first nose touch, the first sit, or the tunnel standoff.